All right, hello and welcome, lads and ladettes. We're going to join the lads over on Twitter, see what's going on, see what they're up to. Here we go.
Here. And so
That he is.
You can ask him your question because I'm curious about how this conversation is going to play out.
Okay. And I don't know if you heard me say hi when you got here, Stone, but how are you doing?
Oh, you're the one who said hi. And I said hi back too. I guess there's so much confusion going on.
Oh, yeah.
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty
No one
good.
said hi to me, but hi everyone. That's
Hey, Shane.
Hi,
What's
Shane.
up,
What up,
Shane?
Shane?
Ether Cause in the house.
Yeah, my Spaces interface is totally fucking whacked. It just keeps opening and closing by itself. That I recommended 3 weeks ago, and that everybody here should know that you did actually make a point of getting a Rumble account so that you could respond directly in the comments section under the second video, which I thought was great. Before we go any farther with your question, though, in follow up to what was talked about there, did you ever get on the Discord server and talk to Eric or anything like that?
I meant to. It's just another one of those things. I do get around to it eventually. And
All right.
I did ask a question, but the comments section doesn't work the same way it does here on X. I think it goes to a certain level in the hierarchy of comments, and then you can't go any further or comment any
Yeah,
further.
they get buried. You have to go and reply to the original comment again and this kind of thing instead.
It's just
pretty
start
bad.
anew. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back one layer. I think I should have gone back to all the way to the beginning.
I should actually look. Anyway, so well, that's good, man. Good. So what's on top of the answer that I've already given you about reference frame? What's the question now?
Oh, well, I don't think I had a new question. What happened earlier is that Nick Cage asked me what I've been up to, if I've looked into anything, and I told him that I did in fact look into those two videos. And there were some follow-up questions for me on that. And so I was basically just regurgitating what you've already heard from me. We did have a little disagreement about what exactly constitutes a inertial frame versus a non-inertial frame. And we don't have to hash this out again, but I mean, to me, a non-inertial frame is any frame that's accelerating.
Yeah, that's correct.
So then if the Earth, so in that final graphic where you show the net force on the moon between the sun and the Earth is towards the sun, but yet why then is the moon continuing to make its way back towards the Earth as it orbits downward and to the right, making its way away from the sun? So that
is the question of the video, precisely.
Right,
yes.
exactly. So but the contention is that to animate the moon doing such a thing with respect to the Earth, your camera has to remain centered on the Earth. And the Earth going around a circular path around the sun is, by definition, accelerating due to its curved path. Correct?
Well, yeah, and that's one of the 4 vectors that we added to produce the end graphic that you're commenting on. That you're saying that we're not accounting for something in terms of the frame, but or some force here, but that's the point, is that I am accounting for them. You just don't understand that we're accounting for them, I guess. But it's straight up in the first round math, right in that video.
You are accounting for them, and that's what I enjoyed about the video, is you did due diligence to do the math carefully. I checked your math. I paused the video at every single time there was new words on the screen. I read them all. Kind of went over the spreadsheets quite a bit, not as thoroughly as the man you were referring to, but I agreed with all of it, and you got it. I think from timeanddate.com in order to test the globe model, I guess, and so you did a good job, and you accounted for all the forces. What I was trying to say was, yeah, these vectors are correct, and the way they're added is correct, nose to tail, and then you connect the tail of the first one to the nose of the last one, and there you have your summation of vectors. And so the only problem is that in order to see that the acceleration or the movement of the moon correlates with the net force on the moon, requires that the motion vector is drawn with respect to an inertial frame. As it stands, that the arrows that describe the motion of the moon are drawn as they would be observed within the Earth's frame, and the Earth's frame is accelerating because the Earth is following that curved path. So
Okay, let me stop you right there then.
Yes.
On 2 points. One, the inertial frame that we're talking about here is that of the sun, because like I said in my response,
Mhm.
these other two bodies are being forced, quote, by allegedly GMM over R squared. They are centripetally being forced around the sun. And in terms of the sun, this is how we're measuring orbital speed, like you talked about the Earth going around the sun, because the sun is the reference frame. It is the inertial reference frame. It's essentially, and again, globies get into this problem with oxymorons in their scientific analysis, and they invent terms like curvilinear, which is so paradoxical. I just don't want to even get into it. But again, we're talking about we're talking about the sun allegedly going around the galaxy at Mach 675, and the entire system is moving in that direction 30 degrees oblique to the axis of the solar ecliptic, so that is given as the sun reference frame, and the moon and the Earth are going around the sun relative to that inertial frame. So when I computed the 4 vectors involved with regards to the moon, as in it's got 2 components in terms of its velocity to consider. And I think part of the confusion for you is arising in how I drew the perspective of the analysis, because that is different than the frame of the analysis. Okay? It was done from the Earth perspective as static. And the unspoken assumption here is that frame is non-inertially officially, curvilinearly officially blasting around the sun at Mach 80, right? And we're looking at how the moon is going around it as they both, quote, go around the sun. This is why you're seeing a pair of centrifugal measurements being added together just to get the first component here out of the 4 with regard to what the moon is doing. Okay, so I think that's where people lose track of what is actually being computed and what is not being left out. You know what I mean? That when we're talking about that very first component of the 2 vectors, one head and one tail, okay, well it's a product of 2, and that's what I show in those left-right contours. Those ones where I show each value, all 29 values going around the moon, top to bottom, and you see essentially a wave pattern based on their net, attract or repulsion, essentially net repulsion away from the Earth itself. Well, the same thing we're doing with regard to the moon's y vector, because we're assuming the x vector is the orbital motion in tandem with the Earth, right? But that's a gross figure. The net figure is relative to the Earth and relative to the sun in terms of 2 orbital, quote, motions that we're adding together. And I didn't leave any.
Appeared to me, and you brought up a really good point, which is that I stand by the notion that the sun is orbiting the galaxy, which means that even the sun's reference frame is technically not inertial either. So I think that the way to really boil down forces outside of that frame, then you can no longer ignore the fact that that frame is an accelerating frame.
But let me check your
Um,
language. Let me check your language there, though, because the Earth is in the center of nothing here, and the sun is not going around it. That frame is not relevant because it's not real. That the whole point of the analysis is that it is done in terms of the quote inertial reference frame of the sun, not the Earth. And again, I'm going to say it again. Hopefully, you're picking this up. That I drew the graphical analysis with the Earth centered, Earth fixed, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm saying that it's a reference frame. I'm saying that it's a geometric point of reference that's constantly changing, but the analysis is done static to that point as it goes around the sun.
Yes, I know that it's it is kind of two separate things. Yes, the analysis, the numbers, that's taking into account the
Right.
forces between sun, earth, moon. You get it really organized on a spreadsheet, and you take care of that.
Right. So when we get to this point in any part of a discussion like this is why I mentioned right in my first detailed response a recommendation to talk to somebody like Eric, because he is essentially sitting in your chair in some respects. That he's a hesitant globie like you. He's not, he's still up on the fence on a number of issues. Everything from Einsteinian, Newtonian kind of arguments to these Keplerian arguments that we're talking about here. The reason that I recommended you talk to him specifically is not just because he has analyzed this video to the umpteenth detail and looked through the actual spreadsheet himself and run his own figures after that to verify that that's exactly what's going on here. It's that he has likely had a very similar education to yours, and that you two would probably share more nomenclature than you and myself might. And he may actually do a better job at helping you comprehend what's going on here.
Okay, so does he agree with you on that?
With what?
The fact that the moon going around the Earth away from the sun, with respect to the Earth, is a problem when the net force.
Okay. So your question is he agreeing with my assertion in general about this video?
Yes.
That the vectors just do not add up if we take mainstream formulae, put in NASA's figure, and this is what comes out. Is that a problem? And yes, he agrees that is a big fucking problem. Yes, there is not, because for Eric, because the math shows exactly what I'm showing. For him, there's nothing else to argue about on the point. That he has conceded the point because it is evident. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's evident.
Evident.
It's evident if we stop at, okay, here's the Earth and here's the moon going around it, and from this vantage point in which we're moving with the Earth, it does appear to contradict. However, if I center the sun, and this is the last thing I'll say, I know that if you center the sun in the middle and you watch overall on the right, that little Earth and that little moon much closer to it than it is to the sun, going around the sun, then you would see the Earth-Moon pair curving up and starting to go to the left.
Yeah,
as
you would.
It makes its way around.
You would.
And yes.
See,
and then
what you're saying here is reminding me a fair bit of QED in regard to observability and how that affects the data. And when we're talking about that pseudoscience, I'll leave them to their presumptions and assumptions. But in this case, all I'm going to say to you is changing our perspective of the things in motion does not change the physics of the things in motion. Does that grab for you?
Yeah, it kind of does because
Okay,
they're
good.
they still have a certain acceleration based on the calculations you
It
did.
doesn't matter how small and far away they look, and it doesn't matter how small incrementally that change in orbit looks as it goes around the Earth. If you're over by the sun, quote 93 million miles away, and it's barely moving back and forth, that is precisely the change in y that I was plotting to produce the centripetal and centrifugal vectors. Is the pair of y motions that the moon is making one relative.
Having some technical difficulties.
The moon or going around the Earth relative to the Earth, and its average orbit is this relative to the Earth going around the Earth, and that's why the formulae work out so well. Well, when you actually put in, the observed quote distances and speeds and that kind of thing, and you do the raw calculation, you know what I mean? That is where we find out that the whole thing is completely full of holes, that the formulae simply do not represent the causals of this reality. And they got to come up with something better because this ain't it. And that's really the point of the video. And again, you'll notice that I've got 50 videos with that theme in general up on my channel now on Rumble 2, that all I'm doing here, my MO, is to take mainstream formulae, mainstream assertion, mainstream asserted figures about what's where in the cosmos and plugging them in, using actual real figure into the formulae and seeing what comes out. And what comes out is nonsense. That's why I make these videos, is to point that out.
Well, I'm enjoying the process and the conversation that we're having for
So
sure.
good. So
There's
good.
definitely more to be had, more to be said, and
Sure.
unfortunately, I can't put myself right in your camp just yet. But
Hey,
yeah,
maybe another
appreciate
20
the
videos and you
invite to
just
go watch
might,
the videos.
go check out the rest of them. go watch the one on plasma. You'll love that. you know,
But I love that video because it outlines our whole position, kinematics versus dynamics, so eloquent.
where I list on the screen in one frame, eventually, all of it's got to be 50 formulae in the first 20 odd pages of this 500-page book. And in the background, of course, I've got this wicked fast motorcycle doing the quarter mile. Way, way, way. You know what I mean? Just to give you the idea of how many freaking formulae this guy from NASA came up with just to describe the nature of plasma, and how almost all of it is utter nonsense once you finally put the formulae aside and just look at the figures they're telling us about. It makes absolutely no sense at all. None. Again, same MO, just apply a different topic, and it's one I think you would probably really enjoy.
And it's called what?
That's a couple thoughts about plasma.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
do look forward to getting on a spreadsheet if I can conjure up the miracle of finding the time to do it, and do what we talked about in the frame of the sun. See what I get. I'll share it with you.
Yeah, that'll be fine. And share it with Eric, man. Like he's got the time. He's got the interest. He's quite cordial. He's quite congenial, and he's quite open to anybody's comment, anybody's question. He takes everything at face value in good faith, which is so rare on the net, which is why I singled him out. You know what I mean? As somebody who's probably exactly a great fit for someone like yourself.
Yeah, I'll see if I can look him up. Thanks for
Stone, can I ask you a question?
yeah. Who's this? Oh, sorry, that's for Stone.
Yeah, Stone.
Evan, what's
Just
up?
because you have a really good vocabulary and the specific thing. The moon this guy at NASA, I know nothing about what you guys are talking about, except whenever you said that his excuse basically was that he used average speeds. He specific thing. The moon. This guy at NASA, I know nothing about what you guys are talking about, except whenever you said that his excuse basically was that he used average speeds. He used the average speed in his formula. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Did he provide info about when and this is about the speed of the moon? This formula?
I think you
he-
misunderstood me a little bit when I was mentioning that part of the dialogue. I was talking
understand.
about mainstream in general, that any physics teacher you apply actual figure and not just a bunch of averages to the formulae themselves.
Okay. What was this specific average? The speed of the moon, as observed?
Well, you know, everything to do with their assertion that it's 240 odd thousand miles away. I think it was 400,000 kilometers was what I was doing in the video. And that it's 29 and a half days around. And if that's the radius, then that must be the speed of the moon based on 2 pi r, right?
Yeah, but they didn't provide so he's saying average, but he didn't provide the specific.
And I say NASA, I mean like what they put out in terms of their web pages and the facts. Have you ever gone to their site and looked up what they call planetary fact sheets?
No.
See, now, if you did, then you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. So I write that term down, get it in a text file right now real quick so you don't forget the term. They call them a planetary fact sheet. And there's one for every planet and one for the sun. And they do them in both sets of units for you for fun. Go and check those, because those are essentially the charts that you find in a basic geophysics textbook. And NASA gives us all of those figures. You know what I mean? There's nobody else out there who's going to tell us how it is in the solar system like NASA. So I point to them directly as a source of this type of information. And when you look at those charts, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the mass of X is this, and you know the radius of X of this is Y. And frankly, when you put it together with time, you're going to get these orbital parameters according to time. You know what I mean? That's supposed to all spell out with simple geometry. And the result of all that is what you're seeing in these charts. And there are no maximum and minimum values supplied in these charts, only averages, right?
Yeah, that makes sense, and it makes
And
your job double checking it kind of harder too.
Exactly. That's the first stage of when mainstream gets in trouble, is when they start to generalize like that. And this, like I said, that is the first step in their mathematical sleight of hand for the whole thing, going all the way back to Kepler, Newton, and the gang, right? That they said, okay, well, it must be this far away because it takes this long and it's that big and it's that big and it's, you know what I mean? The sun or even the moon gets closer to Earth and farther away from Earth. And we know that it does because its angular diameter changes cyclically. And we're assuming that it's this far away based on some kind of fake parallax measurement. You know what I mean? They get themselves into these situations where they assert these values, and those are the values that you see on these planetary fact sheets, right? Well, the whole point is the whole game is rigged like that, and it's all a lie. It's all totally not correct when you take actual figure and apply them to the formulae. People talk about that, they refer to the law of gravity, Newton's law. No. Actually, guys, it is still Newton's theory of gravity because nobody has proven it yet. And the reason that they haven't is because they can't isolate gravity. They can't actually get two gigantic masses to actually attract each other than by electrostatic process.
No, you will hear Globers assert boldly and confidently that they have absolutely isolated it and that you're stupid for asserting
They will
otherwise.
since Cavendish.
Well, you won't hear
They
me say that.
will since Cavendish with his telescope looking into his little hut, through the shadow on the wall off the mirror kind of bullshit. And like, oh my God, if Cavendish was right, then like I keep saying, why don't we see gigantic exhibits of this in Disney and other theme parks? Why don't we see immense masses on really frictionless bearings being permitted to rotate and attract each other over and over and over to say, hey, look, here's gravity, guys. Here's mass attracting mass, because it just ain't so.
That's kind of like saying, why haven't we went back to the moon?
Yeah,
The same
it's
argument could be
exactly like
used.
that.
Why would
It's
we go to the moon? Why would we build these giant structures? Kind of.
Right.
That's my
It's
initial instinct.
exactly like that. And the task that I'm talking about is about 50,000 times easier than, quote, going back to the moon. You know what I'm saying?
To be clear, when you say they're not proving gravity, we're definitely talking dynamics specifically. So in the terms of gravity, dynamics is like big G. They're trying to prove big G via mass attracting mass and the cause of the thing that we're observing. The thing we're observing is little g, right? Little 9.8 meters per second, et cetera.
That's right.
Everywhere. So
that's exactly right.
The things that we disagree with are dynamics, and that's what your video is inherently pointing out do not work, which is what their claim is. They're claiming they know the dynamics for everything. They know the causal force for the way everything moves in the sky ever, and it's patently retarded and wrong.
It totally is. And people are paying for this knowledge, myself included.
But we don't agree with the empirics. So we don't disagree with Kepler. We don't agree with the empiric, the motion, how they appear to move, cycles, like everything that Kepler does in terms of ellipticity of the orbit and all of that stuff is great. But then Newton comes along and he's like, oh, that's cool, Kepler. And now here's my formula, which I'm going to get from your formula, which I'm going to now pretend to assert mass. I'm going to insert it as a dynamic cause and a variable. And it's going to be the cause for everything. This is how we know the reason why things in the sky move. Definitely took all of Kepler's formulas and just inserted a dynamic force. And then that's what the backbone of the claim is nowadays. That's how they know that mass attracts mass and gravity.
Yes.
Therefore,
yes.
So
they took Kepler and Coulomb. Yeah, Kepler and Coulomb all the way. And on that note, on that point that you're making here, Shane, I would say, look, I am the first advocate for a very distinct change in terms of how post-secondary curriculum is being handled, in such that the guys who are science majors, the guys who are physics majors, should also be mandatorily forced to take history of science as well, not just study the formulae and the feats of these people allegedly that did this in the past, but how things ended up for them afterward. Like how Kepler himself on his deathbed admitted that he fudged the data. How Einstein later on in life admitted, no, man, none of this actually works out. You know what I mean? There are countless examples of this in our scientific history that simply do not ever make it to out. You know what I mean? There are countless examples of this in our scientific history that simply do not ever make it to the curriculum. The post-sec student never hears about it. They take everything else on faith as a result. It's just, there's no bad press. There's no bad press up at the post-sec level, and that needs to change in a big way.
To add to that, that was a great build, Stone and Jonathan. And the history of science is extremely important. Should be taught. Nope, I lost audio. Yeah, Twitter's not working tonight, so check out the stream on Shane's YouTube. I'll put a link here for you guys. I'm going to close out mine. I can't stay connected to Twitter long enough to say anything or hear anything.
That I'm gonna give you an answer.